Let's get salty!
Alright, video intro time, and this time we're talking quests. Today I wanted to go over basically a thread on Iksar's latest AMA regarding quests, and we've kind of talked about Blizzard's take on quests, their stance on it, and a lot of players are very frustrated with the current quests in the game, brought in from United and Stormwind. We're probably going to see a balance patch we're going to see that balance patch. I think like in a couple days we'll probably hit a couple of them, but basically they've completely altered the landscape of the game in both standard and wild, and this has been a contentious issue. And I wanted to go over a response that Iksar gave about quests, their thought process about the Stormwind quest, what they wanted and all that. And before I go into that, just want to be clear, because for the billionth time I always hear this, is first off, I'm not flaming Iksar with this. I'm not flaming the devs. Don't go and harass any devs. Don't go and criticize. Like, this is just us seeing his take on it, giving my opinion on it, what I feel is, you know, how I feel about all of this, and giving an opinion. That's what we do. But again, there's so many people out there that just say we're going to harass and flame, and I'm just ranting and yelling and raving. That's not what this is about. But I want to talk about their take on the quest line. So this was asked the other day. It was asked, so far we've had 4 versions of quests: the originals in Agoro, the hero power quests in Old Doom, side quests in Dragon's Descent or Descent of Dragons, and quest lines in Stormwind. What design philosophy did you take from one to the next in how you tackled satisfying quests? So Iksar had a very long response to this. And he said, this is a really, really long answer here, but I could try to summarize. For one, quests are successful from our design team's point of view. This is why we keep doing them. This doesn't mean they don't come without downsides. Quests help with 2 primary things. They give players a powerful goal to look forward to, and do a good job of explaining how to get to it. B, they are usually a very build around and create deck styles that are much different from the previous expansions, making the meta feel new. In Agoro, we tried making the rewards so powerful that if you completed the quest, you generally won that game. There are some downsides to that, because if you complete, your opponent knows their death is imminent, and if you don't, you didn't get to feel like you had any fun moments. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? We'll get back to that. In Old Doom, we tried making the quests to complete so it felt like you got to do a powerful thing more often, but make the rewards not so powerful that you won on the spot. I think this was more successful. And with this point, by the way, we're not going to come back to it. I just 100% agree. I thought the Old Doom quests were basically this. None of them felt that awful. They were actually quite successful. We also had a sub goal of your deck still had to do something to win the game after you completed the quest. The Druid quest, for example, is very powerful, but it didn't win the game on its own. You still needed lots of choose one cards. This is different with cards like Deathstalk or Rexar that can just win games on their own without any interaction from the rest of your deck. In Stormwind, we generally followed the path we made for ourselves in Old Doom, but with more moments of power along the way. In theory, the quest player could still have a satisfying game this way, even if they didn't complete their quest completely. The big downside of quests as a whole is that we ask you to build your deck in a very specific way to get this big piece of power. This reward has to feel epic to motivate you to build a suboptimal deck. That reward has to be powerful enough to win the game in most cases. Otherwise, why build an entirely new deck in order to get it? And if the reward is that powerful, then it can sometimes feel helpless to the player watching it happen. Decks depend on stripping their opponent of resources are less likely to win in formats with quests, because quests aren't designed to be easy outvalued, basically saying control can't keep up. So all in all, I think quest formats have value. They are polarizing for sure, but not every meta is supposed to be the same. We'll be sitting in the same timeline next expansion talking about another style of deck and how people love it and and others hate it. So basically what they're saying is the next expansion, I guess, is going to power creep this somehow, and we're going to be polarized in another way. I don't know. But anyways, that's a lot to take in, but I see a ton of wrong with the statement. There's so much, the statement just feels crazy to me. It just doesn't feel like this is what we're experiencing. So I found it just very interesting that if we look back at this comment from Iksar, if in Agoro we tried making the rewards so powerful that if you completed the quest, you generally won that game. But they wanted to get away from that with the most recent expansion. This is this expansion, that when your opponent completes like the Shaman quest, you've lost. You're gonna die in like 2 turns. They're gonna get Scrapyard Colossus into Deathwing. It's over. Same thing goes for, like, you know, Warlock. You're completely screwed once Tamsin comes down. The fatigue damage is gonna kill you. The self-damaging cards are gonna kill you. there's nothing you can do. It's just over. And then it's the same as well for the mage quest, +3 spell damage, plus they have the infinite ignites to go with it. I don't see how this is true. I think they nailed it on some of these quests though. I think this is true for, like, you know, not wanting to feel imminent, like the rogue quest, the druid quest. Guess what? They don't see play because the other ones are so busted. So it's kind of crazy to me that they have the stance. They see the problems with the old quests, but here we are in United in Stormwind, and these quests are so powerful that they've deleted all the other archetypes out of Wild. Basically, you have hyper aggro and warlock quest, and that's it. That is literally it. So the imminent death that comes from these quests is very there, and it's so powerful that it makes the Uldum quest, or sorry, the Ungoro quests irrelevant. Like, you don't see that in Wild. But even if you take a look at the Ungoro quests, which one of these actually won the game the second you played it? Like, Jungle Giant sure didn't. Barnabas would lead to some crazy stuff, but it's not much different than the Demon Hunter one in that regard. A bunch of mana cheat. Carnassus certainly didn't win the game. A bunch of Raptors is nice, but it's not winning the game. The Mage Quest, getting that extra turn, probably going to win you the game. That's probably the closest, but it was really hard to accomplish back in the day. Kaleidosaur, Galvadon certainly did not win the game. In fact, it basically never won the game. Amara was just a nice little extra thing to have to stay alive. Did not win the game. Caverns Below absolutely won the game. You're not going to beat Infinite 5/5s. Megathyn definitely didn't win the game. It was a value bomb. And Lakari Sacrifice, Nether Portal, again, infinite value with the 3/2s. Definitely didn't win the game. It was tough to deal with, but you could deal with it. Even in a control deck, you could deal with it because fatigue used to exist in the game. And then Sulfuris, you know, the getting your 8 damage to a random enemy. That probably won the game in most matchups because you just can't outdo that. But you take a look at those quests, they didn't really win the game. And again, the power level, not quite at the level of United Stormwind. So if you do look at Uldum, definitely, like, this was value, Hack the System was value, mana cheat, you got some battle cry value, which is pretty hard to beat. Again, you got a war blade, a war axe for immunity. You got to buff your stuff. Like, none of these quests really won the game, and it's pretty accurate. I thought the Uldum quests were great. None of them felt, they were never nerfed. No one was really crying about it. Some people cried about this, but I didn't see like, for the most part, the Uldum quests were great. But, like, again, we look at United and Stormwind, and the power level of these quests are just so ridiculous. Like, even the Hunter one basically wins the game. It's just a little bit slower than the other quests. The card's just not quite there. But in Wild, it's ridiculous. It's warped everything. Like, all these quests are just on a level of their own. So if they were looking for a quest that felt like a good support thing that you have to build your deck around to help win the game, I feel like that's not true. The other point is the big downside of the quest as a whole is we ask you to build your deck a very specific way to get this big piece of power. This is true for a couple of the quests. So if we're looking at Druid, you have to run like Feral Rages, Pounces, suboptimal cards. You don't really like running that. With Rogue, you got to run the SI cards. You don't mind running a couple of them, but for the most part, you don't love it. Hunter, I would say, is true. You got to run a lot of extra damage spells that you might not run necessarily, so it's a bit more of a build around, but there's some big offenders here. Like Mage is just Spell Mage from the prior expansion. It subbed out a couple of cards. You got like Ignite in there because it's Ignite and a couple other cards, but you don't really have to build around it pretty much at all. Warlock is the same self-damage Warlock from before. You literally can throw the Demon Seed into pretty much any Warlock deck and you're good to go. You don't really need to build around it at all. And it has the most powerful reward probably of all time. And it requires effectively no build around. In Wild, you literally just threw it into Dark Lair. You can throw it into Zoo. You can throw it into anything. So this reward by itself, the most powerful reward arguably in Hearthstone ever, requires no build around. Pirates, I mean, you're playing Pirates. It's not really a build around even on that one. So it's true for some, but it's ironically the ones where it's like you don't have to build around it that much compared to before, like Warlock, like Mage, that are the most broken, that have the best rewards, and the ones that require the biggest build around, like Rogue and Druid, are the worst and have like the worst payoff. So I just feel like there's a disconnect. I feel like they're talking in a different world than what I'm experiencing, and I'm just making this video to try and make sense of these comments because I get the philosophy. I think it's a great philosophy. If these things were true, I think these quests would feel great. I think a big part of the problem right now is this doesn't feel true. What they say they're going for hasn't really come together. The broken quests are broken, and they're broken for the reasons they said they're trying to avoid. And I just, until they get dialed back a lot, which hopefully happens soon, I I just can't understand the statement. So basically making the video to ask, can you guys explain this to me? What do you guys think about it? Do you think, you know, maybe that's was their intent and they kind of just missed the mark on it? Or am I just crazy? Am I just a crazy yelling old man who's, you know, just past his prime and doesn't know what to do anymore? So let me know in the comments below. Just thought it was an interesting take. And again, we're not flaming Iksar, we're not flaming the devs or anything like that. It's purely just a discussion to have and see like what, you know, trying to see both sides of this discussion and have a fun debate and discussion. That's all it is. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.